So we're here ready to do our new podcast where we interview professionals, businesses, community organizations, and more.
But I thought we were here to interview artists.
Whoa, yeah. Yeah, we're going to be interviewing all types of artists, musicians, poets, singers, dancers, painters. Whatever your craft is, we welcome you to come to our podcast and tell us who you are, locally and abroad.
Or is it more about relationships and why those in love wear matching outfits?
Well, to each his own when it comes to outfits. We like to dress alike, of course. And it does matter how we look both individually and as a couple. We represent each other, right?
Right. So, since you said that, shouldn't this really be about beauty?
Oh yeah, I'm going to share some of my beauty tips, of course. I mean, that's what I do. Oh yes, darling, because you do know that I am a Mary Kay consultant and I've got to let them in on some of my secrets. Anyway, you know, because when you look good, you feel good.
Speaking of look good, feel good, that reminds me that this is more about the vegan, plant-based lifestyle, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Plant-based living saved my life. Fighting diabetes, you know, changing my lifestyle to the vegan lifestyle has really improved my health. And so we're going to show everybody how to eat right, tasty dishes that are good for you, and have some guests who can help us with those culinary arts.
That's what's up. So what about the reflections and encouragement of the day? Isn't that what it's really about?
I think at the end of the day, people are going to want to know, what is ChynaGroove? I'm ChynaDoll.
I'm D-Groove.
And together, we are ChynaGroove.
We are ChynaGroove. We are. I'm not the singer. Once again, on another Saturday night, Saturday.
On a warm Saturday.
What,
the world? 70 degrees in December?
Wait a minute. Not just December, but one day before somebody's birthday.
It's my birthday eve.
Somebody's birthday is tomorrow.
It's my birthday.
That's right. It's Sagittarius season. Saturday, Sagittarius season.
That's a lot of S's.
On another Saturday Sagittarius night. I'm satisfactorily sitting on another Sagittarius Saturday night. How's that?
I'm sufficiently overwhelmed.
Suffice to say.
Yes.
Anyway, I am sitting, I had to get that final S word. One last S. Sitting across from the sexy, one more. And luxurious. I took your word.
You stole my word.
I stole your word. But I'm sitting across from Camilla ChynaDoll Collins, Washington.
And I have the pleasure to switch my word tonight, too. Sitting across from me is the very sophisticated Mr. Derek D. Groove Washington.
Together, that makes us ChynaGroove.
What's up? We got a treat for y'all today.
Oh my goodness.
And this is personal for me because our topic hits home for me and my hubby because we live the life. I will not delay. Did you have any more announcements before we introduce our guest tonight?
I mean, I'm going to hit the drum roll.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as president of the Perfect Workday Company, Mike Collins has presented approximately 3,000 seminars, workshops, and keynotes for groups ranging from the American Academy of Family Physicians to IBM and Pepsi-Cola, and both UNC and Duke University medical centers. After escaping from Lumberton High School as a B student, Mike flunked out of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill 3 times before finally graduating in 1979. Mike's father said he was in Chapel Hill for 3 terms, Nixon's, Ford's, and Carter's. His bachelor's degree was in radio, television, and motion pictures, and Mike's advisor once told him that he had a great face for radio. We'll show that later. Since the auspicious beginning, Mike completed a master's degree from Duke University and studied at Oxford University. He has been a guest lecturer in the nationally ranked Executive Master's Program at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill School of Public Health and in the Master's Program in Healthcare Leadership at Wake Forest University. Mike has been profiled in Business, North Carolina, quoted in Fortune magazine and on Forbes.com, and featured in the book Retire and Thrive. He is the producer of an award-winning video for family caregivers. Mike has written 8 books, including The Perfect Workday and Caregiver 101, and his 200-plus articles have appeared in a wide range of business and entertainment magazines. Unfortunately, his only novel, Final Grade, is evidently so bad that no editor has been able to read it all the way through without throwing it away. Ladies and gentlemen, the luxurious, fancy, schmancy Mike Collins.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen. There he is, Mike Collins. There he is.
Welcome to ChynaGroove. There he is, right there.
You guys are something. Listen, here's something. First of all, happy birthday tomorrow.
Thank you.
Happy birthday tomorrow. But here's what I'm finding interesting. When I found out it was going to be your birthday tomorrow, I looked you up, and it says Sagittarians are typically outspokenly optimistic extroverts who elicit respect and affection from everyone they come in contact with. Sagittarius natives are loyal, smart, assertive, and compassionate personalities. They are one of a kind, talented, and have impeccable discernment. Now, those last 2 words, that impeccable discernment, you chose to have me on your show, so I'm not sure about that last 2 words. How y'all doing?
We're doing good.
We are doing well. And here's a plot twist that I want to throw in there to you as well.
Okay.
Hers is tomorrow, and mine is 4 days after hers.
Oh,
so we're
really?
both, yes.
Well, if that's the case, and since both of you are, what's that phrase again?
Impeccable.
We have impeccable taste.
Both of you are outspokenly optimistic. Does that mean you spend most of your days trying to outgood comment to each other?
You know what? It makes for good marriage. For a good marriage.
Yes, indeed.
That makes for a wonderfully positive environment, doesn't it?
Yes. Even when we're disagreeing.
Do you disagree optimistically?
Yes. Usually if I want to win the conversation, I'll just say, I'm pretty and I'm your wife.
Conversation over.
I like logic of that.
And he agrees and everything's okay.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. No kidding. I love your opening. That is so cool.
Thank you. I'm going to toot my horn just once, and then the floor is yours. It's been a labor of love. I do the graphics. I do the music. We wanted it to definitely have a personal touch and feel, so we didn't outsource it really to anybody. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's beautiful. I love the globe. I love ChynaGroove coming around and stuff. I mean, I kind of have a media background, so being able to see something like that and the message it conveys, way to go, y'all. No kidding.
Okay, well, and that definitely means a lot coming from you, because the couple of times that I've heard you speak, I'm thoroughly impressed with your knowledge, your personality, your ability to get things across in the simplest way so folks can understand it, absorb it, and turn it into something positive for their own. So kudos to you on that.
Well, thank you.
And I appreciate your ability to listen without judgment and to understand without and respond without changing the tone of the room. You're very easy to talk to, and you have a great way to get messages across. So that was why I felt it was important to have you on our show, as well as to bring the information that you have.
And looking at this picture, you're very easy to look at.
we should explain to folks why this keeps popping up. Um, these folks are so kind. I told them that I would be glad to appear if they would superimpose either Tom Cruise's picture or Chris Hemsworth's picture on my face, and they're being so kind to do that. So I don't usually see this, so thank you.
Hey, not a problem, not a problem. So tell us about yourself, sir.
Yes.
Who are we speaking to?
That's a wonderful question. And when anybody's asked something like that, it kind of depends on personality, where they're going to take off to. I guess if I was going to do a quick explanation, I have always been someone who, from a work standpoint and from a life standpoint, I've always focused on the fact that we're only here on this planet one time, and it should be fun. And now let me say this. When I was in college, and one of the reasons I flunked out of college 3 times, I majored in fraternity and all that implies. But my big brother in the fraternity became an admiral in the Navy. And he and I happened to cross paths a couple of years ago, and we kind of got to talking about things. And his whole focus, life-wise, was and still is service. And mine has always been fun. And for about a dozen years after I got out of college in the mid-'70s, I had I don't know if I'd say wonderful experience, but a learning experience of working. I worked twice for state government, North Carolina state government. And in fact, I started my career off working for the North Carolina Corrections Department. And
Wow.
And then the other experience was toward the end of the 80s, and I was the media relations director at the Keenan Flagler Business School at Carolina. 2 very, very different experiences. But sandwiched in between those, I worked for the Bell System, I worked for 3M, and I worked for Standard Register. All 3 very, very large corporations. Yes. I had better jobs than either of my parents ever had their entire lives. But they weren't fun. And my parents didn't exactly like my take on it. But I said, look, I've got to find something that every day when I go to work, it's fun. And that's what I do. I sent finally my mother towards the end of her life. My mother made the comment. She said, you show off for money. And that's a lot of what I do, whether it's speaking, and you two are so kind to have been in programs I've done. Your comments are wonderfully kind. But when I do a program, I'm thinking, how can I offer practical information and that helps change people's lives for the better? And so I'm either showing off on a screen like this or in person, or I'm showing off in a book or on something someone in a magazine that somebody's reading an article. So your question is wonderfully deep in terms of tell us about yourself kind of thing. But I guess if I was just going to say the essence of it is what I'm trying to do is offer people practical information in those areas of life that seem so challenging, and do it kind of in a fun way. Most studies show that we learn more effectively if that information that's coming at us is coming at us in a more of a lighter heart way, rather than being hammered with that kind of stuff. So talking about tough things like caregiving, I'm trying to do it. I tell you what, I tell people I'm an 80-20 kind of guy. I am about 20% theory and 80% practical information. How can you take what you're going to hear today with us? How can you take that and have it make your life better? So I don't know if that's the answer you were expecting, but yeah, I think that's kind of who Mike Collins is.
Sure is.
And I'm kind of a similar way in my jobs, during security. It's easy to just hammer people over the head with, hey, it needs to be done this way, or that way.
Yeah.
I like to, and whenever I used to do trainings, I used to actually bring things that weren't supposed to be coming into a stadium just so I could set the magnetometer off or things like that, because people perceive things differently on a visual level, like you say, instead of just hearing it. You know what I mean? So if you present them something in either a fun way or a completely unique and different way, they tend to absorb it more. They tend to understand it more, and it's more relatable. So I definitely understand and feel you on that.
what I hear both of you saying is experience is the best teacher.
Mhm.
So it's not just what you're experiencing or what you're learning, but how you learned it.
Mhm.
I think you taught me that at the Rise program. What are we selling here?
You know,
We're
it,
selling the experience.
let me dive back in with this though. The thing about experience that I have found is there are some people who can they will learn from experience, because they'll look at their experiences and they'll say, "Hey, what went right? What went wrong? How can I change my experience the next time and make things better?" But then there's some people, and it just seems like they just blow through life with their foot on the gas, and they really don't think about that experience, or they don't think about the stop signs they're running, and that sort of stuff. What do y'all think? I mean, is that kind of how you see those folks?
Well, I can see where you can relate to that, Mike, with the 3 times. But yeah, yeah,
Say that again.
it's true. It's true with your school experience. I'm saying that you had your foot on the gas through college until you
Oh yeah,
got it
yeah.
together, and it's fun to go fast sometimes until you hit a tree, and so then you have to really rethink if you make it. You have to really rethink what you were doing in the first place and why you were doing it. Some of us are just in a hurry to get to the destiny, I believe, and
You know,
mhm.
here's a good example. Like I said, I mentioned a little bit earlier, the first job I ever had out of college was with the corrections department, and I was a public information officer. I was
Mm.
based in Charlotte. I had about 18 counties, and I had prison, probation, parole, and youth schools. I tell people I was the person who, if somebody escaped from a prison unit and cut grandma's head off, I was the one on the news that night going, "We're real sorry that happened. We'll try not to let it happen again."
Oh my goodness.
At that time, I was not a bad young man. I was kind of a wild young man. I was not a bad young man. But if somebody had come to me at that point in my life and they had said, "Mike, there's a Porsche on a dock down in Key West, and here are the keys. And if you'll go drive that Porsche from Key West to New York City and not look in the trunk, if you make it to New York City, we'll give you $75,000."
Oh wow.
I would have at least entertained that idea. But it took one time of me walking through a prison that idea was off the table from then on. So,
Mm.
like what we're saying here from an experience standpoint, being able to look at your life experiences and ask those questions of, do we want this to happen again or not? If we do want it to happen again, how can we make it better? So, I think I'm willing to bet that's a question you folks ask each other after every one of your podcasts.
Indeed.
Our podcast went well. The next one we do, what do we want to do to make sure that it goes better? Uh,
You're right.
but not everybody does that, and I just find that in the people we come in contact with in life, some of them learn from experiences, and some of them don't.
Hmm. Mama used to call that hard headed.
Yes, yes.
And I
And
used
that
to hear that a lot.
hard headed with a soft behind.
Matter of fact, I still hear that.
Did the phrase jerk a knot in you? Did that come close to
Ooh,
that comment you heard from Mama?
jerk a knot in you. That mean I jerk so hard you hit your head on the
Yeah.
wall.
I know. Oh,
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm grateful for that those terms because it helped us. It did teach us to learn from our mistakes. And you're right, we do review every show and critique it, and we're rough on ourselves sometimes. And at home, we go back and watch it back on the TV screen. And so, with that being said, can you tell us a little bit about? You just mentioned the jerking a knot in you. Can you tell us about your childhood or your past, like throughout school, or what really influenced you to take this route beyond all of the many hats that you've worn? What really influenced you to write your books and really to take this role as the encourager and the public speaker that you are today.
And of course, real quick, since this is the interview portion of it, we have to do this.
This is what we like to call the
intergroove. That's very cool. That's very
questions, cool. Questions. Yeah. So while you see that graphic there, that's done by the sophisticated and luxurious D Groove.
I like that. And I love the fact that you have the time stamp in the upper left-hand corner. That is wonderfully practical right there. I like that a lot.
Yes.
To your question, now, are we talking about the caregiver thing? Or are we talking about public speaker? What are we caregiving?
Yes. What led you to write this wonderful book, Caregiving 101, to help us caregivers?
It's interesting that we were talking about experience a second ago, because so often folks are dropped into the caregiving experience without any experience in it. Maybe we have seen someone. It's like me. I mean, as a male, I saw my mother in a caregiving role with my grandmother, with her mother. I saw my grandmother on my father's side was a professional caregiver, and she worked with a number of people in our community. So I saw that, but I never really made a connection with there's going to be a day when this is going to be me, when I'm going to have to do this sort of thing. So, the story I tell folks, y'all, is July 13th, 1993, I was living the dream. I was about waist deep in a swimming pool in Chapel Hill. I had about half a beer in my hand. I was 41 years old. I was divorced. I was in a pretty good relationship. I had a small business that was doing reasonably well. I finished the beer. I got out of the pool, dried off. I walked over to my apartment to get another beer. And when I walked in the door, the phone on the wall was ringing. Everybody remember phones on the wall?
Yes.
It almost seems like it's just this thing from the past, doesn't it? But I picked up the phone, and it was my mother. And she, in a very calm voice, was explaining to me that my father had had a major heart attack that morning. She had called the EMTs. They came to get him and had brought him back. And they were getting ready to life flight him from Lumberton, which is where I'm from and where my parents lived. They were going to life flight him up to Duke University Medical Center, which was about 10 miles from where I was standing with that phone. That phone call was my introduction to caregiving.
Wow.
And I was lost. My mother, I drove down to Lumberton, got my mother, brought her back to Chapel Hill. And my father was in the hospital there for about 5 weeks and that sort of thing. But I lasted about 90 days. By October, I was at my doctor's office, and I walked into his office. I was in the examination room when he walked in, and I had a sheet of paper, and it had 8 signs of depression on it. And I held it up to him, and I said, "Gary, this is me right now. You got to help me." And he knows that I'm not a big one for taking handfuls of meds and that sort of stuff. So he started talking about self-care, taking care of yourself. Now, here's where it gets pretty interesting. When I was on the phone with my mother, and she told me what had happened, the last thing she said on that phone call, she said, because I told her I was coming down to pick her up, she said, "You take care of you." Well, that phrase, she had used that phrase with me from the time I was a little boy. I mean, I'd be running around in the backyard and it's almost dark. Now, me and my buddy's going to camp out in the backyard. And she'd say, "Will you take care of you?" She would say it before I got on a bus to go to play a football game in high school. She said it to me hugging my neck in the parking lot when they left me at Carolina my freshman year, that first day. And all through my life, that "you take care of you" phrase came from her. And I remember being about 12 years old and finally getting up the courage to say, "Mama, that "you take care of you" thing, that sounds a little selfish. And she said, "It's not selfish at all." She said, "If you take care of you and the need arises, you'll be able to take care of other people. But if you don't take care of you and the need arises, you're not going to be able to step up." Mm-hmm. And so Dr. Gary Bean talking to me about this self-care thing, it clicked. this whole thing about taking care of myself and self-care clicked. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier when we were talking about kind of my philosophy about how I do what I do from a way to go, Nicole, rock on. That whole issue of practical tips for folks. So what I could see from this self-care were practical tips that caregivers could use to take care of themselves. And what I was seeing is a lot of other folks who are in caregiving who really aren't doing a lot of those things. And I started looking for ways to offer tips like this to folks. And that's what led. I mean, I was already doing tons of seminars and writing articles for magazines and all this other stuff, books and all that. So what I started doing is plugging this information into those tools to be able to get it to folks as much as I could. Like right now, if people go online and they go to one of the websites I have is called caregivingcraziness.com. I'm not sure how you can post it so folks can see that. Caregivingcraziness.com. People will see a bunch of the blogs. They'll see a video. I did a video in the early 2000s that won a national award from Today's Caregiver magazine. I'm a lot cuter and a lot younger in that video, by the way. But just practical tips that folks can use to move through the caregiving experience and take care of themselves. I tell you, this whole thing about the health impact alone of caregiving is stunning. Yeah, 6% of caregivers die specifically because of things that have come up, stresses and that sort of thing. In caregiving, the disease rate thank you for putting it up like that. Disease rate for caregivers is dramatically higher than the rest of the population for people that age. And it's just, so that's really kind of how I've gotten into this. And I'm finding over the last 20 years, because you figure my journey so far has been about 30 years long. What I've noticed is that the pace has picked up dramatically in the last 15 to 20 years. And I think the main reason is so many of us now as baby boomers are entering that period of time in which we are being cared for. I'm 71. I'm right in the middle of the baby boom bubble. So there are a lot of folks who are older than me who are being cared for, and a lot of folks same age who are kind of getting into that time when they're going to have that experience of being cared for.
Yeah, and it's it's interesting because it's not like we do this on purpose, but it seems like every guest that we have had on, we can relate to their topic or what they are going through in a personal way. Because for myself, I got into caregiving kind of the same way that you did. My mother had a stroke. I got a phone call that she got a stroke. She was down here in North Carolina. She came back up to Northern Virginia, where I was at the time. And I was the only one that really had the time to spend with her and stay with her during her recovery period. And it was something that, it'll stick with me forever because, you hate to see a loved one, especially your mother or a parent in general like that. But it was something, and for me, it wasn't something that went on long term as far as something that I'm still doing for her now. But and I mean, I see where I get my stubbornness from. I get it from my mother.
She's still
she will, she has recovered so much to the point where she's out in the garden all day working, or she just when she went back to the house in Northern Virginia for Thanksgiving. First thing she did, she went out in the yard and raked all the leaves.
Good for her.
She's late 70s, and I mean she's a strong woman that keeps on going and going. But for me, at the time, I was working a job that was doing events. I was working 12-hour shifts. I was working and then coming home and sleepless nights. I mean, I was to the point to where sleep, what's that?
Right.
You know what I mean? And then when she finally left, I remember when I went back up to work, I was staying at a friend of mine's house in Baltimore. And just in the middle of the night, I jumped straight up off the couch thinking I heard her voice, thinking she needed me. You know what I mean? Right. So that speaks to the mental aspect of it because, it's something that you're going through. It's something that you really, you can try to prepare yourself for it, but until you are actually involved in it's night and day. Night and
Well,
day.
to your point about the middle aspect, let's touch on that for just a second.
Mhm.
If you notice, folks are seeing the web address for the website down below, Caregiving Craziness. I have had people confront me about the use of the word crazy in
Mhm.
Oh,
relation
yeah.
to caregiving and stuff. But here's what I tell them. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the American writer, talked about the fact that each of us have what makes us up as people, the experiences we have, the knowledge we have, that sort of stuff. And Emerson talked about that makes up what he called the vast background of our being, who we are.
Mhm.
And we call on that whenever we encounter experiences and that sort of stuff. I mean, that vast background of our being kind of shows us the way. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The writer Thomas More, who wrote the book Care for the Soul, said that there are experiences in our lives that pull us away from that vast background of our being. The experiences in our lives that are so different, so dramatic, and just jump on us that it makes us crazy because we don't really have experiences and knowledge to reach back on and to rely on when those things happen in our lives. I think I think that phone call that you and I got, I think that
Mhm.
phone call is the type of thing that puts us into that crazy frame of mind because we don't have experiences that can tell us here's how you need to get through this. Here's what you need to do.
Yes.
You'll both appreciate this. A number of years ago, I was speaking at a conference, and the person introducing me, nice guy, but he was a big dog doctor at a fairly large institution and had a lot of letters after his name and all that. You know what I'm talking
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
about. So anyway, he gets up and he had some very nice things to say in the introduction and all that. And then he hesitated and he said, but I have to say, I don't agree with this use of the word crazy. He said, I think it can be used blah, 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 blah. Okay. So I get up there and I thank him for his introduction and everything. We had about 200 people in the room. Most of these people, by the way, were caregivers. And I said, to Dr. So and so's comment about the word crazy, I said, let me ask y'all something. And I'm going to ask it as the way a Southerner would ask it.
Come on now.
I said, how many of y'all think caregiving just makes you damn slap crazy? Well, out of that 200 people, I bet I had 180. Yeah, right. Yeah. I had 180 hands go up. And if it didn't go up, about 10 of them were staring at their phones for some reason. But I looked over at Dr. Knows Everything, and he had this look
Oops.
on his face like, okay, I get it. I get it. So I think that that point about caregiving is one of those experiences that pulls us away from the experiences we've had in life that we kind of rely on to get through things. So,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
what you've got to start doing is looking around for ways to move through it. I mean, one of the things I tell people all the time, they'll say, well, what's the number one thing I need to be concerned about? And the answer I give them a lot of times is kind of surprising. They get it as far as the practicality, and you both will get it as soon as I toss it out.
Mm-hmm.
The number one thing is whoever that person is you're caring for, are they safe? If they are
Yes.
safe, everything else is gravy. Everything
Mhm.
else is, I mean, yes, you would love for them to be put up at the Biltmore House. You'd love for them to have this staff of world-class doctors and all this other stuff. But if they're safe, everything else is gravy. And you can start kind of figuring out, okay, now how do I take care of them? How do I take care of myself? What am I going to need to do? That sort of stuff. Don't y'all what do you think about my logic here? How am I doing so far?
That's quite logical, and I agree. And I want to add to that they should also be having some type of fun. Personally, in my experience, I know that for my dad and anyone else in my family that we've had to take care of in their time of illness, my dad especially, he was a great dancer before he had some nerve damage after a stroke, and so he has this song that if you play it, it's like muscle memory. And with or without his walker, he will get up and immediately start to dance to this song. It is One Nation Under a Groove by the Funkadelics. And so you familiar with the tune, right? And so and so even at our wedding, that was my daddy daughter dance because I knew no matter how he felt, he would get up and he would dance.
And he was the hit of the reception because when he got up on that dance floor, I mean, everybody was like, okay, go Pop, go.
Yeah, so I agree totally that they're safe and spend a lot of time being happy because I know that there's two sides of the caregiver and the caregivee, if that's a word. A lot of times he's concerned. I'm still his little girl. So he's concerned about how I'm doing. Am I happy? What do you want for your birthday? That type of thing. So I have to sometimes make sure that I'm still vulnerable with him and let him know, Daddy, I need your hug. I need your kiss. I need your advice.
That is so interesting that you bring that up. I just got through in the last couple of weeks doing a bunch of seminars down in the southeastern part of North Carolina for a government agency. And there was a person in in one of the programs. She was a nurse, and she found out about the caregiving stuff that I do. These programs were more about a business topic, but she was a nurse, and we got to talking, and she was talking about her father, who had a stroke, and and because of her nursing background, she was kind of trying to almost help him as if he was a patient. And one of her colleagues said, okay, yeah, watch out for some of the stuff, but you need to be his little girl. First and foremost, you need to be his little girl. And she said that when she started taking that tack with her dad, she said you could see him starting to relax. You could see him even though he had difficulty communicating, that it meant more to him. There was a closer connection, that sort of stuff. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Way to go. Way to go.
And I love that I've been blessed to learn that. It's still a task to practice it because, my dad's 75, but he's still battling 2 cancers and he's on dialysis. It's renal cancer. And so with that being said, with trying to normalize what we used to do, our schedules had to adjust. With dialysis, the schedule is every other day. He's like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I really can't be a full-time beautician as I used to be. But I'm realizing I'm close to retirement myself because the beautician is only supposed to do hair for 20 years max. He's helping me as his little girl to grow into another level of my life, as well as teaching me from the standpoint of a man, from what he showed me with my mom and him and my mom being married together, is how to be a good wife, as well as balance out what's going on in the house, because we still got a 23-year-old in there with us. So yeah. So I just love the blessing of having my dad around, and he's having a good quality of life. But I do appreciate that every birthday, every holiday, he wants to make sure that I have a card, a cake, a balloon, a teddy bear, something. And he's looking at me like, I need you to take me to the store. I'm like, when are you going to go to the store again? What do you need? I'll get it for you. He's like, no, I just need to go to the store. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Okay, we're going to go to the store.
You brought up a good topic. If you don't mind, let's explore this for a second. I agree that if you can help that person who's the caree, let me jump on again. There are a variety of words and terms that are being used for the person who's being cared for. The phrase I just used, the person who's being cared for, is kind of a long term that's hard to kind of handle. You're seeing the word caree thrown around a lot. Caree. I'm not a big fan of caree. It sounds kind of odd, but I don't know. The school's still out on what term is the best term to use. I don't know. But going back to my original thought, yes, you need to try to help that person have some fun, and if you can, bring them a lighter heart. But it is so important for you as the caregiver to find some fun. Now,
Mm.
if you talk to researchers, most of them will agree that happiness and fun can be two very different things. Happiness
Mhm.
is a state of mind, and it's difficult a lot of times if you're a caregiver to maintain a state of mind of happiness. But what you can do is you can find these moments of fun that bring you a little bit of that lighter heart and kind of help you move through that time, that challenging time. So one of the things I tell caregivers is, in one of those moments that you have, start listing things that you think are fun. And some of them you can take advantage of, and some of them, because of your situation in life or money or whatever, you might not be able to just jump into. But here's the thing that's so wild. The research shows that as you're thinking about those things and you're writing them down, your stress level's going down. I can hook you up
Mm.
to EKG and I'll see your heart rate go down if you're sitting there writing down 10 things that you think are fun. Um, and I mentioned earlier that most of my life has been focused on how do I have fun and how do I make a living having fun and that sort of stuff. But if I look at my list, I mean, it's everything from skydiving to jet skiing to all kinds of stuff that really is. I've got a list. In fact, I'm looking at one on my desk right now of things that I'm kind of looking ahead to that I think would be fun to do. But for caregivers, this is a simple activity that you can use that kind of takes your mind somewhere more positive and brings you a lighter heart by simply listing those things that you think are fun. It's like asking people to come up with a list of 10 things you're grateful for or 10 things that you think you're happy about in life. And I think that activities like this can help caregivers move through that difficult time. What do y'all, when you think about the things you do to help your stress level, what are some things y'all do to help you lower your stress level? What do you think?
I'll take that one. You kind of heard the byproduct of what I do. Whenever if it's a stressful day at work or anything like that, I'll come home and put the headphones on and I make a beat. It's not that I lose myself in the music because if my wife ever needs anything or if she's talking, I can still converse with her while I'm doing it. But it's just the act of sitting there and being creative and
Hmm.
going through that process that, it's not like I'm shutting the whole entire world out while I'm doing that, but it's something that I enjoy doing. It's something that I know I can put towards either this podcast or have someone else sing over. And that's for me. It's always been that way for me.
Uh-huh.
Music. When I look back on my life, music has always played a very integral part. Whether it was from my father's record collection, his 8-track tapes, his reel-to-reel tapes. I mean, whatever format you could imagine is sitting back at the house, and I can listen to anything from jazz to rock and roll to
Right,
to
right.
Motown or whatever, and it's that escape, but you're still in reality. So for me, it's definitely music.
I
I
was a disc jockey in high school,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, and it was late 60s. It was right about that time when on one side you had Four Tops and the Temptations, on the other side you had the Beatles kind of changing over to hippie, and you had the Rolling Stones and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And I'll tell you a quick story in a second about it, but you're exactly right. That music thing, I tell caregivers all the time, you need to come up with a list of 10 songs that make you feel positively. You need to put them on your phone so that when you have some of those moments that you really kind of feel yourself sliding,
Mhm.
that music can help bring you back.
So
And
true.
so I just I can't explain enough, and you've really done a great job here of touching on it. That issue of also of creativity is there's an
Mhm.
area of creativity in your life, creating that thing that's new. So often we see caregiving, we're seeing it with that person who a lot of times their condition is deteriorating. And it's hard, sometimes to not let that have an impact on us in terms of how we see life. And I find that music and art, a variety of different types of creative pastimes, help us understand that there's a future out there. And it's a future that you can be a part of, even though this is a very difficult thing going on in your life. Don't you think? Is that how it impacts y'all? Yeah,
definitely. And real quick,
me of the movie we just watched.
And her ears must have been itching or burning because my mother just chimed in. She's like, yeah, so so what do you do?
Miss Millie don't miss nothing.
Yeah, she doesn't miss nothing.
Mama don't miss nothing. So we were watching a movie. It's very interesting how you said about how the creativity helps us. And I watched the emotion of an artist named John Baptiste.
Mm-hmm.
And he is a composer. He has a documentary. You got to check it out if you haven't. It was amazing because his fiance at the time was dealing with leukemia. And they hardcore went in with like reality, no script. And he was at the same time at the peak of his career, getting like 10 Grammys and winning all kinds of stuff.
Putting together a show with the Philharmonic.
So the American Symphony is what it's called. And you cannot imagine how he explained his own anxiety during the process and being separated from Suleika while she was going through a bone marrow transplant, and just seeing how he used the music, and the type of music that he created was out of this world because he put together every single genre of music that you can think of. From his friends from Juilliard he went to the reservations, and he got the Native American drummers. He went to the jazz singers. He had, it was just phenomenal. And he took all of that pain and he put it into that production. And you just got to watch it. You got to watch it. It's called the American Symphony.
I loved his work on Stephen Colbert. He was just fabulous. I hated seeing him leave because he was the band leader on Stephen Colbert's show. But what I've seen is exactly what you're experiencing, and what you're seeing is he has moved into a whole new area as far as his career is concerned. And it's a fairly dramatic jump up. It's pretty interesting to see what he's done. You mentioned something just then, though, that I thought was interesting about his wife going through this and how he's using this issue of creativity to help him move through. Yesterday I had lunch with a good friend from the past, he and his wife, and we had lunch at Dips, Mama Dips over in Chapel Hill. If you've ever been there, it's wonderful. But he is an organist for a band called Idlewild South. They are a tribute band for the Allman Brothers, and they are known all over the Southeast. They are wow, really unbelievable. And he has cancer, and it's about as bad as it can get. And I was talking to him about how he is using music to deal with what is an inevitable situation. And his wife is his caregiver, and both of them were talking about how music, their ability, or his ability to be creative and everything. He said when he's standing up at that keyboard, he doesn't have cancer anymore. And he said, in terms of where his mind goes and that sort of thing, he knows it's there, but he's creating and he's in the moment. And and as he's talking, out the corner of my eye, I can see his wife nodding her head because she's in the audience. She's seeing him come alive. And I find that for caregivers, this same sort of thing in terms of finding something that brings you joy, especially if it's something like music or creating art or whatever, it reminds you that you are alive. And I think that there are a lot of caregivers who so closely identify with the caree that they almost see themselves kind of sliding. And it's difficult to watch.
It is. It is. And even on that documentary, Zuleika, she was the medication that they gave her caused her vision to blur, and she was right. She was a writer. That was her art of choice,
Mhm.
writing. So instead, she said, "Give me paint and canvas." And she, instead of words, she painted images to express what she was going through, and it was just remarkable. And I too have gotten through some hard times with paintings. If you ever come to the salon where I work at Full Circle Beauty Salon, right in Jonesboro, shameless plug, you can see some of my art on the wall right in my suite.
I was getting ready to take the headphones off and run in the office and grab one real
Oh
quick.
no,
But
no,
I'm
no, no,
not
not
gonna do that.
necessary. But yeah, come by the office down here, and both offices, the office and the salon are both in Jonesboro, ironically. So, but I'm taking up roots here in Sanford. So, yeah, but it really has helped me even with transitioning into a plant based lifestyle. When my dad first became ill, I was also embarking upon changing my lifestyle with a battle with diabetes. So I chose a plant based lifestyle. And just so happened when we reunited, my husband and I, he was changing over to the plant based lifestyle. And so it worked out that we come together and work on this thing together. And one of my favorite paintings that I've done is right in the salon. It's like the opposite of the standard American diet. And up there it is. We like to call this segment vegan-ish, because we're not those fanatical vegans that's going to throw red paint on you and say save all the animals, save the whales, and all of that. We
Even though we
care.
should save all the
We
animals.
should. We do care, but we're not fanatical. We just chose this lifestyle because it's healthier for us both as individuals and as a couple. And so I guess I'm trying to segue to how do you help with caregivers who may have trouble with their eating habits, or what do you suggest they do to have a healthier physical lifestyle in conjunction with their mental
Their
health,
mental.
with their art and their therapy and whatever makes them happy? What do you suggest they do to help with the time management of what they put in their bodies?
It's interesting you ask that because so often in settings like this, I'll have people say, I mean, because I'm giving them all this information to think about or whatever. And you know how people a lot of times it just, well, give me what's the number one thing? What's the one thing I can do that if I do this one thing, it makes things better? And
Mhm.
the answer I give folks always surprises them. And it's drink
Mm.
more water. Because if your hydration drops by 2 to 3%, it inhibits your ability to do simple math. It inhibits your reaction time coming up on stop signs and stoplights. And
Wow.
I find that a lot of times people who are dehydrated are thinking slower. Their fatigue rate is higher. And so by making sure that you get enough water, and here again, where a lot of people kind of mislide is thinking that coffee is water, thinking that
Uh-oh.
Mountain Dew and Pepsi and Coke is water, and it's not. And it's not. Um, but but
Oh,
It's funny you say that because I've just chosen to fast from coffee. I've been drinking peppermint tea and the oil and water lifestyle tea. Is my business partner. She and her husband have a company right here in Sanford.
5 days now with no
Today
coffee.
is 5 days
Yeah.
for me without coffee, and actually this tea doesn't have caffeine in it, so I've just like maybe about 24, 36 hours without caffeine. So it is true. As a caregiver, I did find myself, I would skip meals and just drink coffee all day just to keep going.
uh-huh,
And after a while, it's just like you feel ill. You don't, you just want the taste of the coffee and the smell of the coffee. It's not
right,
enjoyable anymore.
sure.
And ooh, there's a withdrawal when you stop.
Mhm.
Don't go cold turkey.
You know your point about the vegan lifestyle, I really like that idea. And I try to eat a lot of salads and stuff. One of the things that happens, I think, a lot of times with caregivers is that food as a comfort issue, like you were talking about the fragrance of the coffee and the taste of it's something familiar. And if you look at the connection we make with our senses, everything, and it's like we were talking about music a minute ago and what music can do for us. The fragrance of foods and beverages that are familiar to us, that kind of give us a little bit of things aren't as bad as I thought they were kind of feeling, that sort of thing. I know people who eat chocolate, and and chocolate calms them down. It seems like it's just, but I think a lot of times what you have to do is try to maybe give yourself other rewards that can help you kind of ease away from some of those things. I really like that concept of if you can ease people into something like let me rephrase this. Let me say, if you can ease people into eating more vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
If you talk to them about a vegan lifestyle, I think a lot of times what you get is, look, my life's so stressed as it is right now, I don't need one more thing to think about. And I think if we just look at folks and say, hey, eat more vegetables, you'll feel better. You'll be full. You're eating stuff that's healthy. And again, however those vegetables are cooked, it may be that you're going to, at Mama Dip's, I had the vegetable plate, and I had turnip greens, black-eyed peas, rice and gravy, and coleslaw. And so, but I do think from a health standpoint, you mentioned something a minute ago about trying to get some rest. It's difficult sometimes to help encourage or try to encourage caregivers to get more rest for a couple of different reasons. One, they'll talk about the fact that, well, I'm up all night with mama or daddy and that sort of thing. But wherever you can kind of grab a little bit of rest, you need to try and find ways to do that if it's all. And I get it that a lot of times some people are working full time, so they got to be up and going to work, that sort of thing. But again, the more fatigued you are, the more difficult this whole experience really is. And what I've run into with some caregivers is they'll think, okay, I finally got mama or daddy, I finally got them to bed. Now I've got to go over here and work on all this paperwork that their caring has generated. I really can't get to bed early and that sort of thing. Yeah. A lot of it is just trying to figure out ways to solve problems and move ahead. But the three things that I find are so important. One is drinking more water. Second is getting more rest, if at all possible. The third may surprise you, and the third is movement. Trying to help people understand how important movement is. Something as simple as take one flight of stairs. Take one flight of stairs on a regular basis, that sort of thing. Because what you'll have a lot of times are people spending a ton of time on a couch, or maybe beside mom and daddy's bed and that kind of stuff. I even came up with an exercise that I call scooting.
What's that?
Yeah. What it is you're standing in one place, but you're moving your arms and moving your legs at the same time. It's almost like kind of walking in place.
Okay.
Oh.
And it's kind of scooting along, that kind of thing.
That sounds like dancing.
Well, it is very much like, it's kind of like doing your own. There you go. I'm seeing it on the left. It's very much like that.
I'm shaking my shimmy.
Because anything that kind of gets your system moving a little bit is a good thing. And
that did actually feel good.
Yeah.
It does. So, and we do that with our children in our modeling group. When we stretch before we start walking, because we know we're getting ready to discipline them into a straight line. We're talking about 6 to 9 year olds. And we're telling them to walk down the runway. But before we get started, I always say, all right, now do your stretches, do this stretch. And now shake it off, shake it off, shake it off, shake it off.
Oh, I like that. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, you got to shake it off.
And I did, I was curious when you mentioned the chocolate, and I did actually look it up. So the benefits it's saying is the serotonin in the chocolate, it causes anxiety to be lower. And then the mood elevation, the content that causes that is theobromine. And then it's also in the dark chocolate, magnesium. It really has a high amount of magnesium, and studies are starting to find that magnesium may be one of the few nutrients that has a noticeable effect on anxiety. So there you
And,
have it.
and magnesium is hard to absorb. A lot of us are magnesium deficient and don't know it because they don't regularly test for that.
Mm-hmm.
Say again, it has a noticeable effect on.
It has a noticeable effect on anxiety.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So it keeps your anxiety down,
Mm-hmm.
basically. Yeah. So that, I could see that.
Speaking of anxiety, so you know how for me, sometimes I don't feel like putting on my makeup or necessarily doing anything in particular to my hair. I used to wear a lot of makeup and lashes and wigs and get all primped up and everything. But since I've been a caregiver, I've noticed that I'm wearing the most comfortable clothes that I can. So I find it difficult to get dolled up. Even when I go to church, I stay comfortable. I try to make sure I got some cute with some color in it to wear out when we're going out. But how would you say that? What would you say to help someone who has to wear the Mad Hatter, the caregiver who has to be professional and maybe is it okay to leave your tie? So you don't have on a tie tonight, but if you've got to go to a meeting about mom and dad, this is our segment that we call the House of China Doll. By the way, we talk about fashion and beauty tips, and that's what we do on ChynaGroove, the House of China Doll. But what would you say would be a help with time management and looking your best as a caregiver, Mike?
Golly, I don't know that I've ever been asked that. That is a wonderfully articulate and interesting question. The things that jump to my mind from a standpoint of how we look, comfortable clothes don't have to be unfashionable. And I think that as a caregiver, wearing comfortable clothes and not feeling like you've got to just dress to the nines. But having said that, I do realize that a lot of times being able to kind of dress to the nines helps people's confidence, makes them feel a certain way. I'm just saying that you don't have to be like that every day. And here's something that how do I say this? It's an area, I'm going to talk about makeup, believe it or not.
Okay.
And as a male, I'm going to talk about makeup. I think that there are a lot of times that women are able to come up with what is a very basic type of makeup, and they feel okay about it. Maybe not as good as they would want to, but they feel okay about it. I know over the years, a lot of women, as long as they can put on lipstick, they're fine. Yeah. I think you have to kind of have that conversation with yourself. How can I simplify my appearance so that I'm still looking okay? And if I need to go out in public and do things or whatever, I feel okay about that. But at the same time, I'm not, taking up half of the morning just trying to get ready to walk out the front door.
It's impossible.
Is that making any
sense? It makes all the sense. Even my side gig is I'm a Mary Kay independent beauty consultant. So sometimes I kick myself. I say I'm not putting on my makeup like I should. I tell them all the time. I say I really want to get dolled up today. I just don't have time. And you're right. I am a lipstick and earrings kind of girl. If I put on my lipstick and some cute glasses, maybe I like a good frame, and maybe even just pull my hair back in a ponytail, make sure it's brushed neatly, but it's still have on my comfortable sweatpants. I can take the best selfies with some red lipstick and some cute glasses. Go check my Facebook, yes. But you are so right, Mike. It's amazing how you touched on that as a man, especially to notice that we can do that. I have one client who's over 70, and she always apologizes for not having her face done when she comes to get her hair done.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
She's like, I don't have makeup.
But with some folks, that is such a measure of their, such a foundation of their confidence. And I understand that. I think that, if you just have a conversation with yourself, what are the basics I need to be able to walk out the front door? And then there are going to be times that I have to dress to the nines. Let me toss this out. And this is something you would never expect on your show, but y'all have been so wonderfully gracious and open about this. But going back to how we look, my driver's license picture is absolutely awful. When I went to get my new driver's license, It was the beginning of the COVID time, and everybody's wearing a mask and all that. So anyway, I got in. I didn't have to worry about taking a test other than the little signs and all that stuff. So the lady at the DMV office said, okay, we're going to do your picture now. You need to take your mask off. So I just kind of whipped the mask off. Okay. Well, I didn't realize that when I did that, it kind of poofed my hair up on the side and on the top. And she didn't say anything to me about, I'm not going to smooth your hair down because we're getting to take the picture. So now,
Shame on her.
Man, it looks awful. Now, here's the only good thing about the picture. When I have to show it to people, I tell them, here's the thing. If I've had about 9 beers and I get pulled over for driving after 9 beers and I have to hand my driver's license to that highway patrolman, that's what I'm going to look like. So he's going to look like that all the time anyway. And I know.
It's like, oh, he looks like this all the time. He's fine. Thank you. You can go ahead, sir.
Thank you for your patience. I love telling that story, and thank you for listening to it, and I appreciate it.
So you got to look at the bright side of that, I guess, the positive side.
But to our conversation here, though, what things, if you're a caregiver, what things bring you what I call a lighter heart? I mean, that silly story that I just told you, I can't tell you how many people I've told that to, and their reaction is exactly what your reaction is.
And you know what? Believe it or not, we have your driver's license photo. There it is. Right there. There it is.
That's great. That is so great. That is so great.
He's good. Isn't he good?
That is great.
Oh my goodness.
But finding those ways to move through that tough time. Let me kind of ease back to at the beginning. We were talking about so often when you get that phone call, whatever it is that alerts you to the fact that you're now a caregiver. I tell people one of the very first things you need to do is look into your experiences in life and ask yourself, okay, what are the things I've gone through that can kind of help me in this time? A lot of the corporate work that I've done over the years has been about time management. One of the books I've written is called The Perfect Workday. It has been about time management and a bit about how to deal with change. One of the seminars I do for a ton of folks is called I Didn't Sign Up for This, How to Deal with Constant Change in the Workplace and in Life. And what I found when the caregiver stuff started hitting me, and what I've been able to offer to a lot of folks is, if you can keep yourself a reasonably well scheduled, and I'm not talking about something every minute of the day, but at least something as simple as a to-do list, and not ending up with 150 things on it or whatever, but being able to use a to-do list to kind of keep up with the things that you've got to be doing. And also looking at how people move through change in life and what are some of the things that can help you, like the drinking of water thing. In times of change, in seminars, I'll tell people one of the main things you do when you've got change in your life of any type is make sure that you stay hydrated. The thing about the keeping up with what's going on, if you'll indulge me on this, one of the things I toss out to people is what's called the question corner. And the average American forgets half of what a doctor tells them before they ever walk out of the doctor's office. They forget 70% of what the doctor says within the first 24 hours. I tell folks, whenever you are in that caregiver role, any sort of meeting you go to, I don't care if it's a Zoom meeting, in person, on the phone, I don't care. Have something to write with and something to write on. And I tell people in the upper left-hand corner of whatever you're taking notes on, you want to list 7 questions, and they are what, why, who, where, when, how, and how much. Now, the cool thing is when you write those questions down, 2 things are going on in your brain. Your brain is thinking, okay, which of these questions can I ask to get more information? And what information is coming at me right now that's going to answer these questions? And your brain automatically works like it's one of the coolest things about how our brains as humans work. But this question corner, I've presented it in tons of programs. I've had Well, there's a law firm that if I fired up their name, you would recognize it because you see their stuff on television all the time. And I do training for them. And they thought so much of this that they had notepads made up with what, why, who, where, when, how much on the notepad.
Nice.
And there are a couple of partners in the practice. If they're walking around and they don't see one of those notepads on your desk, they'll want to know where it is. I got an email 2 weeks ago from a hospital in Eastern North Carolina who I had done training for and shown this to. They're going to put the question corner on notepads and give it to all their folks. So you, as a caregiver, trying to make sure that you've got a handle on all this stuff that's coming at you is very, very difficult to do. And you can't, you can't remember everything. So little tricks that you can use for things like that can help keep your stress level down at a reasonable level and help you remember those things that you really need to remember.
Speaking of remembering, Mike, I've also wanted to ask the very important question that hopefully you can give us some insight. How do you suggest that people who are in marriages, who are in caregiving positions, relationships, whether it's a marriage or boyfriend, girlfriend, or even in your business relationships, what type of communication or help did you think that you could suggest for us to be successful in those other areas of our lives? We like to call this segment the Conversations with Venus and Mars, the logic and the emotion of life, and how to communicate that what we're going through.
Wonderful thought. And I love the fact that you make a connection and a differentiation between Venus and Mars. Couple of things. You can't forget that you have a family. And what will happen so often for caregivers is they're running towards that caregiving responsibility so hard that a lot of the folks they're waking up to next to every morning, or that they're sitting at the breakfast table with, they're thinking, these folks know I love them, they'll be okay. I've got to take care of this stuff over here. And you can't really do that, especially if there are children involved. And the younger the children, the more you've got to help them understand they are still loved and that you're thinking about them all the time and want them to be okay and that sort of thing. So you've got to do those little things and here again, managing your time as effectively as possible. You got to do those little things and let those folks know that you love them. Now, a couple of things that some caregivers have told me that work for them are leaving notes. Whether it's leave notes on people's pillows. If you put somebody's lunch together, leave a note in their lunchbox, that kind of thing. But also literally telling people, look, I got to take care of me, Mom, but I love you. And I've got some friends right now who are going through this. The mother's father has early onset Alzheimer's, and it's a really rough situation. And she has two daughters. One is 5 and one is 7. And her making sure that she lets those kids know that she loves them is hugely important. The other thing is, if you have a partner in a married or in a relationship, two things. One, making sure they know that they are loved or cared for, but also letting them know how important it is to you that they let you know that you're cared for. And trying to find out, and this is going to sound kind of odd, trying to find out how much they might be able to help you in your responsibilities. If you make assumptions that they are going to do this, this, and this, and they don't do that, and that, then all of a sudden that's contention. So you've got to have some conversations to find out kind of where everybody is in that relationship. Now, let me answer the second part of your question. Let's look at your workplace. I tell caregivers all the time, yes, your boss is concerned about you and about your caregiving duties and about the impact it can have on work. But the very best thing you could do as a caregiver related to work is do the best job you can while you're there, because they'll cut you some slack, but they ain't going to cut it on you forever if you are not holding up at least part of your end of the bargain. And it goes back to being reasonably well organized, communicating clearly with people, and being well, how do I say this? Being organized relating to stuff and being organized relating to time. And
Mm.
you know, and I get it that you can't find your car keys or you lost your phone every now and then. Well, what you need to start thinking about is what ritual might you use so that your phone and your keys are always kind of in the same place. Um, so, and this goes back to that change and learning new skills as a caregiver. So
Yes.
you got to answer your wonderful question. You got to let those folks in your life know the impact that this is having on you, the fact that you still care about them, the fact that you want to do the best job you can relative to the time you have and the responsibilities you have. So again, it's a juggling act. I tell you, here's one of the interesting statistics. More and more caregivers are leaving the workforce. And they're leaving the workforce because caregiving duties are keeping them from doing the job they feel like they need to be doing as a caregiver. And it's having a very negative impact on income levels, on what kind of rent they can pay, house they can afford, and all that stuff. It's really it's a dramatic change in life for a lot of folks, and
It is.
makes you crazy.
Wow.
And it's really difficult because at some point when Dad was really in a bad way and I couldn't, I had to go to work, to make ends meet and stuff like that.
Sure.
There was a time just right at the beginning of the pandemic where we were about to let a nurse come in, and my dad was like, "Mm-mm." He's like, "You my caregiver." And so I had to govern myself accordingly. She would come in maybe 1 hour a day during the weekdays, and that gave me some time to take a long shower or a bath or a walk or, just things of that nature. But after a while, he was just like, and then COVID hit hard. So we were just like, we don't want anybody coming over that could possibly bring us the virus. We were paranoid. Because you can't mask up enough if you got to sit in somebody's bedroom and take care of them.
Sure.
And so it's what advice do you give to someone who needs to come to a point and have a come to Jesus moment and relinquish some responsibility to a professional caregiver?
Yes. I love your phrase there, because that come to Jesus moment a lot of times is what you do have with people, because a lot of times that caree, their ego's involved too. And they don't want to feel, and what they're looking for a lot of times is, I want things to be familiar, and I know you, and you can do for me the things that I need done. Well, but I'm not a nurse, So
It goes back to that comfortability factor that you spoke on earlier as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just trying to find your way through this. And a lot of people, I'm trying to think about a great way to explain this. But it goes back to what I talk to people about change. Everybody wants things to be kind of the way they were. And all of a sudden, here's a dramatic change that has happened. And let's understand that anytime dramatic changes happen, we're going to have some uncomfortable stuff that's going to go on. I'm going to be right here with you. Okay. If I need to be, I'll be holding your hand, literally or figuratively. You're going to be holding my hand too. Excuse me one second. But we're going to get through this, and let's just understand there are going to be some moments where things might get a little testy. And if you need to have that come to Jesus talk with them,
Indeed.
Hey,
Indeed.
Let me tell you something my mother said one time. She said, we were trying to explain to her kind of a change that was going to happen. And she said, you know how many times I told you I'd jerk a knot in you? You're not too big or too old for me to jerk a knot in you.
She meant that.
And we started cracking up laughing, my brother and me. We cracking up laughing. And we said, Mama, at this point, having a knot jerked in us, that would be a good thing. That would be a good thing. So she starts laughing, and the whole mood kind of eased off,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yes, indeed. So this has been so awesome. We can't thank you enough for coming and sharing your wisdom with
Thank you
us
for the invitation. It's
and
been
making us laugh
Yes,
so good. You're
indeed.
so funny. And that this has really helped me personally. Like I said at the beginning, this is personal.
good.
And I'm glad that we chose this subject to talk about today. Before you go, I wanted to ask that you leave us with your final nuggets or your takeaway that you want to make sure that the people remember from this conversation with us when they come back and watch this again. What would you say in a nutshell are your final thoughts?
Two things. One, and flat out, and this is from Marie Collins, from my mother. I'll probably get choked up saying this, but you take care of you. You take care of you. As a caregiver, as long as that person you're caring for is safe, what you've got to do is take care of you. Because if you can't take care of you, you're not going to be able to take care of them. Then, from a practical standpoint, you've got to find a way to kind of keep a handle on what's going on around you. And you can do that with the question corner, and you can do it with a to-do list. Those two things right there, asking more questions and making sure you get the things down that you need to be able to, so that you can go back and look at them and go, okay, here are the things I've got to do. So you take care of you from an emotional standpoint, especially, and then use the question corner and to-do list to take care of all that stuff, responsibilities.
That's awesome, and that's it. I mean, there isn't anything else we can share with the people more than that. You take care of you. That's my portion today. That's for me. If you see the graphic, it says it's the wrap, and that's what we like to do with our final thoughts: is wrap it up. And you have put a big, beautiful bow on this conversation with that. And you have one more point.
One more point, and I'd like to make an offer to your viewers. And I do this in a lot of the other webinars that I do and everything. One of the books I've written is called Caregiver 101, and it's 101 ways to take care of yourself if you're a caregiver. If your viewers, any of your viewers, would like a free e-copy of Caregiver 101, I will be delighted for them to have it. All they got to do is reach out to either you and you let me know, or reach out to me. And the email address for the Caregiving Craziness email address is on the website, but it's contact@caregivingcraziness.com. I'll be delighted to send them a free e-copy of Caregiver 101. I'd love for them to have it. Contact@caregivingcraziness.com, or they can go to you and your email address, and you just let me know.
You are so awesome. I got
Contact
my
at
copy and it helped me.
caregivingcraziness.com.
That's it.
Contact
That's it.
@caregivingcraziness.com.
It's an easy read and it's very insightful. And I thank you so much for your life's work. Thank you for everything that you're pouring into the community, into our businesses, from the bottom to the top.
Mhm.
Thank you for what you poured into me. And I'm so glad that we're cousins with the last name Collins. That's an inside joke, but my people are from Red Springs and your people are from Lumberton, and that's right next door. So
Oh man, this has been such a fun conversation, a great conversation.
Y'all are a delight. Thank you.
And a very informative one. It's a very touchy subject to some, but sometimes you have to, and this will be my kind of final words, but you have to kind of break the stigmatism of certain things like this. It's not something that you would wish on someone, but it's something that also, you have to realize that it is a responsibility. But it is also, and again, we've had this conversation on past shows. If you're on a plane and it's going down, you have to put the oxygen on yourself first so you can then help others. So you have to make sure that in a caregiving situation that you are taking care of yourself so you can be there and be a better caregiver for the person that you're caring for.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you can't drive that point home enough, and I believe that you have sufficiently done so. So that way, if you're taking care of yourself, you don't end up looking like this guy.
But that's Chris Hemsworth. That's my guy.
I had to at least get him in there, at least somehow.
That's the worn out one.
You are too kind.
The exhausted one.
I got to
the caregiver craziness, Chris.
I told him, I said, use Tom Cruise or Chris Hemsworth's picture. That's not the Hemsworth one I expected, though.
See, I caught you off guard, didn't I?
So you gotta get this book, everybody. Gotta get this book so that you don't end up looking like worn out Thor. Okay.
That's funny.
That's so awesome. You have been amazing, Mike. Thank you for everything.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for joining us and giving us some of your time. We definitely appreciate it. And I'm sure we will be speaking to you again
very soon
at some point.
And if there's anything that you need from us, please let us know.
I'll holler. Have a good weekend.
You
too. Happy birthday. Happy birthday for both of
you. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you so much. All right. Have a great rest of your evening.
Good night.
Wow. How do you follow that up?
I don't know, baby. I needed that. No, that was real. That was really, really, really fulfilling and fun, funny, and informative at the same time. It's true edutainment is what we do.
Yes.
Here at ChynaGroove. We thank all of our viewers. Thank you all for chiming in and watching and sharing and liking our show and being consistent. And we appreciate you as well out in YouTube land and Facebook land and any other social media we can get on. We're going to get on it soon.
Coming soon.
So continue to tune in. And like we said, this is a wrap.
This is a wrap, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap.
It's a groove show. It's a wrap of the ChynaGroove show. ChynaGroove show. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a it's a wrap.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap.